Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Bidding Classics, the online classic car marketplace with more cars added every week. Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. And Lancaster Insurance cover the Furious fleet. They are one of the biggest specialist insurers in the UK, covering all areas of vintage to modern classic cars and motorbikes. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and today it's another fixing video, and I'm not wearing this t-shirt, Broken Rovers and Shattered Dreams, by chance, because this thing is in disgrace. It let itself down, it let me down, it let Rover down, it let everyone down. So yes, it made it back from the Motorist in Yorkshire on Sunday night, safely in one piece, but not without incident. Let's have a sit down in the car and have a chat. So, getting up to the Motorist at the weekend was a long journey between the many delays on the roads, the roadworks, the crashes, the road closures, and the fact it broke down. I spent 7 hours driving to Yorkshire. I was hoping the way home would be a little bit easier, and after, well, the breakdown services came out and told me that the battery was completely dead, and a lot of people on the 75 groups were saying that was probably your problem solved, because these cars are particularly sensitive to voltage fluctuations. So if you've got a dead battery and you're running off the alternator and the air conditioning and things are cutting on and off, that kind of fluctuation will knock the power out. And the rest of the journey, from when I changed the battery in Pontefract to the hotel to the Motorist, no more issues. However, that was not to last, because on the way home from the Motorist, it's about a 220-mile drive, we had issues. Yeah, we had several issues, in fact. It took a while for anything to manifest, because I think the car had to get hot enough for whatever component was failing to get warm enough to fail. So about 100 miles or so in, on the side of the M11 in fact it was, the engine just died again and just coasted to the hard shoulder and stopped. So after a few minutes of letting the thing cool down, rather than call the breakdown services again, I just let it cool down, and after a few minutes cranked the engine and it went again. So off I went, this time hugging the inside lane a bit more, being ready to always have an eye on an escape route in case the engine should die at any given moment. And that's lucky I did, because it did. It died on the M25 about 3 times. Before I got into the Dartford crossing, I pulled over and let the thing cool down for a good sort of 25 minutes in the services, because the last thing I wanted to do was die on the Dartford crossing, because that's just an absolute nightmare if you do that, bring the whole of South East England to a halt. Made it across the Dartford crossing, died on the M2, let it cool down for a few minutes, off again, then came off the motorway at the earliest opportunity, and it died on the A road. So some people were suggesting that maybe it was a load thing, but as it was about 25 miles an hour, it probably wasn't particularly under heavy load at the time, so I'm suspecting it's just purely a heat degradation issue. So the first thing to check is, of course, the computer, because this is a modern enough car to have records of what's gone wrong in it. So pull out the P-scan. So there's my P-scan, here's my Raspberry Pi. So technically this is a Pi scan or a Raspberry Pi scan perhaps, I don't know. Anyway, watching someone use one of these computers is not the most fascinating video, so I did this off camera. And we had some good news and some bad news. Now, good news first, the car had been showing up a misfire on plug number 4. That had been from when I bought the car, after I changed the spark plugs, and when the breakdown man scanned the car, that code was back again. That had uncleared itself. So I was expecting to see that again, but no, with the new battery, that had gone. Now that's kind of good news, but unfortunately, there were no other codes at all, and 0 codes, so no clues. So at this point, I'm now stabbing in the dark at what might be wrong with the car. And, well, based on the fact it had a misfire only on plug number 4 previously, I'm going to start my search with the coil packs and the HT leads, because I don't really want to keep throwing money at the thing in the hope of finding a problem, but I'm kind of going to have to a certain extent. So I've already been onto JR Car Parts and I have got HT leads. This car's only got 2 HT leads, which is a really easy thing to fix. It's also only got 2 coil packs, because each coil pack deals with 2 plugs. So I've got 2 of these as well. So hopefully this little slight change will make a big enough difference to the car not to be dangerously unreliable. And then I can risk driving over to the barn to empty it as well, because it's still got all the stuff in it from the weekend. Now you would think, after the number of times I had to pop this bonnet over the weekend, I would know by now where the release thingy is. There we go. Nope, yep. Yeah, on my list of things to change are these struts because they do fall off. Something I did on the way home was actually pop off the cover, because I thought if it was these things cooling down or overheating, taking this extra cover off, which is now in the boot, might actually buy me a few more minutes of runtime, because it was getting more and more frequent between breakdowns, as in going from like 100 miles to 50 miles to 10 miles or less. So that cheap toolkit, or the bung it in the boot and hope you've got everything in there toolkit I picked up in Halfords up in Pontefract, that actually proved to be very useful indeed to have that in the car, because it meant I could pop this cover off. I don't know if it did buy me any more time or not, but certainly it felt like a good thing to do. I mean, I might be completely wasting my time here because this is just barking up the wrong tree, but this car is going to have a lot of new components in it by the time this is all done, because I don't really know what's wrong. But the options of why this car keeps cutting out are basically the HT leads, because these do look actually pretty old and manky, and they could be breaking down with heat. These coil packs, and that would explain why there was only a misfire recording on cylinder number 4, because if there was a crank position sensor or fuel pump failing, which are the other two options, that would probably show up as failures across all the cylinders rather than just one of them. So it does kind of push my suspicion towards this area here, either just purely the HT lead, it might just be simply this lead just here. Well, on the other hand though, well, it might be the coil pack itself, and interestingly this coil pack does number 1 and number 4, and this one here does number 2 and 3, which I hadn't realised that previously. Can that slide out there please? Yes it can. So that does actually look a bit old and manky. I did pull these out when I changed the spark plugs the other day, so it has got new plugs in it as well. This car is getting so many new parts. Now these are Beckerman components, which I think are pretty good quality. I certainly hope they are, seeing as it's sticking in the car now. That slides down. They didn't come with new bolts, considering these are about £25, no, £20 each, I think it was, £22 maybe, per unit. Are these both the same? Do you know what, they actually are exactly the same. I guess one is a mirror of the other. I'll pop that on there because that'll be easier to do that while that's still off. So as I was saying, my other options for what this could be wrong with the car are as follows. It could be the crank position sensor, because that would also be getting hot as the engine warmed up and then starting to throw a wobbly, causing me issues. So that's a possibility. That's really hard to get out. As I say, it could be the HT lead. It could be the HT lead itself, or it could be the fuel pump. Now, people did ask, could I hear the fuel pump buzzing when I was trying to start the car on the side of the motorway? Problem with that is, when you're on the side of the motorway, all you can hear is the motorway. The trucks screaming past your ear at 70 miles an hour do kind of drown out the sounds of pretty much everything else. Yeah, these HTs don't come out easy. There we go. Snippety click, and indeed snippety click, so it's easier to pop them in the HT lead on when the part's not actually hooked up to anything. Now the fact these have got copper slip on them does suggest, well, I wouldn't say it suggests they've been out before. I know they've been out before because the car's had a new head on it. The question is, of course, how much stuff got changed when the head was replaced in 2018, I think it was, and how much was reused, and was any of it damaged at that time? Because the old chap who had the car before me, he did virtually no miles in it, and things only ticked over to 60,000 miles as I broke down on Saturday, and the 200-mile journey I did to discover a fault with this car was the first time this car had done more than 100 miles in one hit in a very long time, probably since about 2002. Right, let's see if this thing fires up or not. Well, I'm sure it will do, but you know, fire in the hole. Smooth as you like. Seems happy enough. Unfortunately, the proof is very much in the pudding, and until I take it for a 100-mile drive, I won't know if it's a problem or not anymore. So, for the avoidance of doubt, I have hooked the P-scan back up again and scanned for errors, and no errors, 0 error codes. So still showing no problems, so it means whatever was broken is either replaced or still not showing up as an issue, and not recording as an issue either. I think if it was the crank position sensor, I would get some kind of code up for that, and likewise if the fuel pump was stuttering, I would probably get a message for that as well. And I've been through all the different menus in here, all the error codes, all the different parts of the car, looking for everything, and I can't see anything at all. So all I can do now is take it for a drive and see what falls off. Right, so test drive time, and well, as always, the car is as smooth as you like. This is a delightful thing to drive, it really is. That 1.8K series is just purring away happily, and like the 1.8 in my 200 VI, it's just got bags of torque. It's smooth and silky until you really push it, then it has a bit of an edge, which is quite nice. Interesting little comparisons, a complete divergence, side note, tangent. The two engines do have very different characters, because this is the so I'm gonna make sure I'm doing bang on 50 miles an hour and go through these signs in a second, because there's often speed cameras on the bridge as you come around the corner and go through the 50. No, not on today, but I'm doing 50 anyway. Yeah, this has got a real smooth silkiness to it. I guess there's a bit more sound deadening in there, whereas the 200 VI has got a bit of a rorty edge. So yeah, same engine, one's got VVC, one's got turbo. Anyway, back to doing what I'm doing today. I've got no way of knowing if this is fixed or not, apart from just driving it, because I've got no error codes and the thing fires up perfectly when it's cold. And it took about 100 miles of driving for it to show any kind of problems before. And I'm not going to do a 100-mile test drive just to see if I break down or not. That's not a good use of time. I mean, it's great to listen to Audible, but not great use of time. So right now I'm driving down to the barn, because I've got all the t-shirts and tables and stuff left over from the event at the weekend to get back into the barn into storage. So that's a short drive, and maybe it'll get it warm enough to perhaps show a problem. The thing is though, if it's fixed, it won't show a problem, and if I've not driven far enough, it won't show a problem. It's Schrodinger's car problem. It's a problem that's not there until it is. Because the only other time I drive 100 miles on a frequent basis is when I'm going to work, but I can't have a car that's conking out every 10 minutes when I'm going to work. There's just not enough time in the day. While I'm just driving around, I will just carry on and say it was really nice up at the Motorist. It was a really good turnout. We think we got about 40 or 50 cars turn up, so that's a really good turnout. It's really hard to tell though, because there were about 3 other events going on. Everything was kind of mixed up together, but judging by the kinds of cars that were there and the people who came to say hello, great turnout. Thank you for coming along if you did come along and say hello. Or sorry if you turned up and I was chatting and you didn't get to say hello. But yeah, I'm going to try and go back there again later in the year, because that was really very good indeed. What was very interesting was the number of Rover 75s that actually turned up to that event. There was about a dozen or so. I only thought there were 3 or 4, but then I saw pictures on Facebook later on. Yeah, about a dozen Rover 75s, so all came out of the woodwork. Whether that was because I was bringing this one, whether that's just because there's a lot of Rover 75s in the northeast, I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, right. Now, assuming nothing breaks, this is the end of the video. And I'll say thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and head down to the furiousdriving.co.uk webshop, where you'll find t-shirts like this that I'm wearing right now, which is very apt indeed. And I'm going to say how pleased I am with the car for being fixed with a relatively cheap, well, £85, but easy repair that's got me back on the road and got myself a lovely, trustworthy, safe to drive car once again, and I can enjoy the 75 some more. If it's not fixed and it conks out in a minute, I'll rejoin you in a moment. I don't know where to go with this. I'll say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the 75 and 75 content. See you later.